Interviews are an essential component of any investigation. You cannot get information without talking to someone. So let's dive in. Remember, this is only an overview, so there are lots more courses dedicated specifically to conducting interviews. I love this quote from the 2014 book. Information is the lifeblood of investigations. We are often judged as investigators by the ability to conduct really effective interviews, whether it's witnesses, victims, third party sources, really anybody. We need to be good interviewers. We need to practice our craft and be able to do it well. So let's talk about some of the key aspects. So, first of all, people are rarely interviewed together. I don't like group interviews. It happens sometimes, but it shouldn't be the norm. We want to really take our time. We don't want to rush it. We want to eliminate those distractions, right? We want to make sure that they have the appropriate time. We need to identify ourselves and the person, give them a reason to talk to us. So, for example, if I'm working for a bank as a fraud investigator, hi, my name is Colin. I work for Anytown National Bank. I'm hoping to speak with you about a declined credit card transaction from last Thursday. Do you have a few minutes to help me with this? Setting that up can be very, very important. Don't overlook it. And then make sure that you have permission to record. So recording is becoming more and more common. Make sure you follow your organization's policy. Interviews are the investigative technique where we use human interaction and conversation to identify and summarize significant information relevant to the topic at hand. We always want to be able to answer the EEI, the essential elements of the investigation. These are the most famous questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. Remember that an interview is a conversation with the goal of obtaining information. We use tact, skill, preparation, and our training to achieve these goals. It all comes down to how we treat the person and how we ask the questions to elicit their responses. So let's talk about the interview process. So first we start with planning. Planning is person related. Now, then we prepare. Preparation is case related. So, and we'll talk more about those in a little bit. But each interview generally proceeds in this order. So first of all, we have an introduction. This is a rapport building. Again, that purpose statement. Who are the participants? Getting their identification. Next, we have the narrative. This allows the person to tell their story. We want to leave this as open-ended as possible. Here, we want to limit our follow-up questions because that'll come later, right? This is really their time. Next, we move into the questioning phase. Again, this is where we move into more detail, more specific questions. We really want to bring their focus in that story and understand the details so that we can move into those really finite levels of information. Next, we move to closing. This is where we clarify the information they provided and we offer them an opportunity to correct any errors. We can also ask questions. Ultimately, we want to lay the groundwork for potential future contact. And then finally, we want to express our appreciation to them for their cooperation even if they didn't really cooperate. Now, all of this doesn't matter if it's not documented. So this is why we want to take accurate, detailed notes, or better yet, capturing the video, an audio recording, right? This is where we memorialize what occurred. And then finally, we evaluate it. Once the process is over, let's reflect what went well, what could have done better, and identify ways that we can improve our craft as interviewers. So let's talk about planning. Those, you know, we cannot do these haphazardly, right? We cannot plan or be tied overly to a list of questions. So here we want to determine the purpose, be flexible, respond to them as they do it. This is where the outline is so important. We create these key areas, the topics that we need to address, and then use that as our guide. But we need to be flexible. Again, we'll prepare. We have to look at all of the information and then organize the interview file that we'll use. So, questions should range from the general to the specific. We start with broad, open-ended narrative. Use the acronym TED. So, tell me, explain to me, help me understand, describe. Those are the open-ended narratives. Once we get their story, now we can move further into those focused, specific queries: the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Right? We identify people that they refer to. We get their descriptions. We want to be able to understand who they are. Um, we want the details. We need to be able to understand what happened, tracing the event from its inception to its ultimate termination, right? Location and where we want to obtain details about things like books of account, records, assets, bank accounts, witnesses, safe deposit boxes, all of those things, right? Think about when, right? What are those timing ones? Uh, have them relate the incident to some other known event that occurred, or they can associate the event to a person, place, or thing. And of course, my favorite question: how did the subject understand or acquire the knowledge about what was happening? Did they observe it? Did they see it? Did they hear it? Were there feelings that they sensed? Those are really important. We need to understand that. And then finally, why? We have to determine a motive for many of these cases, not because we need to as a part of the legal process, but because it's really helpful from a jury perspective. We want to find out what and who caused the witness to act. PLATE is a good acronym to remember these general types of follow-up questions. So, for example, the people who were involved, who knew about the issue or could have useful information. The location can center around the physical space the issue occurred or the location of evidence. Actions. Again, this is really where we get detailed. What did they say or do? What did they personally observe? What did others tell you? Or what did you infer by the actions of that other person? Time is about establishing the events, the timeline, the chronology. We need to clarify these things. Remember, people may not remember exactly in chronological order, so it's often our job to help put that together. And finally, evidence. What documents, objects, or admissible evidence and information do they have? Where is it? Is it on a cell phone, email, computer, paper files, all those things. So we said that preparing is really about the case, right? And here we're going to review all evidence, the relevant case files, to really understand the context of what we're doing. Next, we want to develop a structured list of core questions. These serve as a memory aid, not a checklist, right? We've talked about this before. The key is to go with the flow and be flexible. We know what we need to get. This is a way to simply jot down on a small piece of paper the key areas that we need to explore. We want to prepare the setting. Should be a neutral, private setting, promoting openness, minimizing distractions, right? Understanding how best we can get them comfortable uh, in an otherwise potentially uncomfortable situation. Finally, we have to be cognizant of the applicable legal protocols and standards and law, right, in order to maintain the integrity of the interview. So, the investigator should follow up on every pertinent lead and every incomplete question. Questioning should continue until all reasonably expected information has been obtained. Incomplete answers have little or no value, right? Here we think about using short questions confined to one topic that's clearly and easily understood, questions requiring a narrative answer, right, where we avoid those yes no answers. We want to avoid questions that suggest part of an answer, so like the leading questions. And we want them to tell us the factual basis for the answers that they provide. Of course, this comes in the planning and preparation, right? We want to be alert to preventing the witness from aimlessly wandering, right? Have them provide that direct response. Ask questions multiple ways in order to get this. We want them to be focused on the questions that they have asked, that we have asked, but don't allow them to confuse answers or issues or leave questions hanging, right? And then this is where the listening is so important. Concentrate more on the answers that they are giving than by formulating the next question. So that pause, while it can be very uncomfortable, is really essential. So once all of the important points have been resolved, it's fine to finish. Leave the door open to further meetings, right? And don't be afraid to confront them on issues. Um, Again, this is where experience and supervision and understanding the process is really critical. Here are some more helpful suggestions, right? Really thanking them at the end, being sincere and appreciating them. You can explain the process. Say, listen, I'm just a fact gatherer. After this, my report goes to the district attorney or wherever, and that helps them kind of understand what's next. As we've talked about, confront the uncomfortable. These can be very challenging, and we have to be prepared to do this. We have to have the courage, and again, a lot of this comes with experience, right? We want to clarify all that essential elements, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. We need to go back and understand what our uh, elements of the offense are so that we make sure we have all of the information, right? What are the elements of proof? What is the allegation? What are the potential defenses, right? We don't want interviews to be robotic. We don't want them to be, please tell me this, please tell me this. it should be more conversational, right? It should be very natural. We're they're another human being, so we want them to feel valued, and be assured that we are simply objective fact gatherers at this point. And finally, to that point, we want to be fair and firm, right? We don't need them walking all over us, but we also want to be fair. So we can do both. It is a balance, but it's a good it's good to be able to do that. So again, to kind of summarize, I think it's important to understand the interview process as a whole. Look at it holistically, right? Understanding the planning process, who the person is, what their background is, what are the personalities involved, preparing things like the logistics, the location, the timing of the interview, um, in the overall investigation. Is it a custodial interview? Are you recording it? Right? And then moving into those introductory phases, the purpose statement, the opening, building that rapport. Right? We haven't even talked about rapport. That's a whole separate video, but it's important to really build that rapport. Understanding and letting them talk, like giving them the floor and just say, tell me about this, explain this, describe this, right? That TED acronym, the funnel approach. Start with a narrative, move, once that's kind of completed, move to the questionings, those focused ones, right? Closing, clarifying the key information, having them ask any questions, and then laying that groundwork for the future contact, appreciating them for coming in and cooperating. And finally, evaluating. How did we do with active listening? Did we paraphrase? Did we use open-ended questions, um, and confirm information provided? Did we meet the plate requirements, right? People, location, actions, time, and evidence. You know, how can we improve? What worked? What didn't? And listen, everything is specific to this particular individual. You could have a really successful interview with one person and take that same technique and apply it to another person, and it won't go well. That's why we have to be flexible. That's why we have to have the confidence and courage to be able to do this. So finally, think about how to become a better interviewer. Practice, right? Practice that planning and preparation. Um, Take more on courses on interviewing. Evaluate yourself. Watch other interviews. There are tons of interviews on YouTube. There are TV interviews. You could literally go and see what opportunities there are to observe, right? But most importantly, use everyday situations to listen and talk with other people, right? This will make you a better interviewer. Interviews are designed to obtain leads, develop information, and secure evidence, right? We need to be able to get witness testimony, admissions or confessions. Those are major factors in resolving these types of cases. So remember that most evidence is introduced and presented in court through the testimony of witnesses. These interviews are the essential tools, right? Be prepared to develop information the witness may provide spontaneously. We have to be flexible, right? We don't want to waste time or ask unnecessary questions, but we need to really carefully plan that outline that has enough flexibility to cope with anything they throw, and then be able to develop those leads as they arise. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it's been helpful and given you some things to think about. Continue to interview with empathy, be curious, and have a purpose, right? Look at your sense of observation, resourcefulness, and persistence as you engage in your investigative technique. Our goal should always be cooperation. I hope this has been helpful. Feel free to come back and look for other videos. Thanks.